Hi there, and welcome to Openly Grey with Sandy Kay. This is the very first episode of the playlist called PTSD and Ketamine Therapy. And as I was doing the videos over the last 4 years, I realized when I was uploading them to YouTube that I had not explained what happened in detail, and that I had to go back and record the actual events of the carbon monoxide poisoning. This is it. Today is March 15th, 2026, and the carbon monoxide poisoning was 4.5 years ago. And a lot has happened in 4.5 years, and you're going to see videos that I started within a year or so of the poisoning. I've been through a lot of experiences with it, and a lot of has happened, and a lot still to this day affects me. But there's a lot about carbon monoxide poisoning that people don't know. People assume that once you get outside, you're okay. That is not the truth. Carbon monoxide does damage for 90 days. But I'm going to explain the process of what happened and how I got through it throughout these videos. But let's go back to October 5th, 2021. I was a flight attendant for an airline based out of Detroit. I started being a flight attendant at 51 years old, and I was 56 at this point. And we had to go to a training at a hotel close to the airport that I flew out of, Detroit. And the hotel and the conference room where we were was above the pool. And I had gotten there early because, number one, I thought it started at 7 o'clock. It didn't. But I'm one that's always early opposed to being late because I don't like to be late. But I was way early. And before this, I used to teach this class. This time I was a student at the class. And my friends, who I hadn't seen in a while, were teaching the class. And I wanted to spend some time with them and hang out with them. And so I just hung out there, waiting for them to arrive because the instructors arrive early, obviously. So they start to arrive, and I'm helping them set the classroom up. And remember, this is at a hotel conference room. And I wasn't feeling all that great, but it was early in the morning. I hadn't slept well the night before, so I wrote it off to a lot of different things at first. The class begins. We sit down. I always sit in the back of the classroom. As a former instructor of the class, I don't need to be up front. I know what's going to be said. I just have to be there, right, to get my check mark that I had been there. And across from where I sat was a heat register blowing on me. And I'm a woman of a certain age, so I get really hot really fast. So I take off my sweater, and I can feel myself getting red in the face, and I start to get a headache. The class is going now for about half an hour. And, I get headaches. Everybody gets headaches. And I stand up and I walk over to my flight attendant bag to grab some ibuprofen. And as I'm walking back to my seat, I realize I'm kind of unsteady on my feet. That's weird. And I talked to both the gals sitting next to me. And I said, "Do you feel okay?" She said, "No, I have a headache." I said, "How do you feel?" She said, "I have a headache." I stood up. I stopped the class. I said, "Is anybody else feeling terrible?" Actually, I used different words, but we're not going to talk about it. And every hand in the room went up. And I said, "Everybody get out." Actually, I used another word there, but we're not going to talk about that either. So the last thing I remember is, those silver bars on doors that you press them when the door was open? That's the last thing I remember doing, is pressing that door, that bar to get out the door. And the next thing I remember is outside throwing up. Okay. I was told in between that I stopped in the men's bathroom and threw up, and that I rode the elevator down, which in an emergency, you wouldn't ride the elevator down. I don't know why we didn't take the stairs. But at this point, nobody's thinking right? So it looks like a scene from Die Hard. There are ambulances, and there are police cars, and there are fire trucks, and there are so many people. And the firefighters, my husband used to be a firefighter, so this is why I know this. On their jackets, they wear a carbon monoxide detector on their jacket. As soon as the exterior hotel doors opened, their monitors went off. They're like, oh. They have a little sniffy machine. They took to the room upstairs where we were in the conference room, and the meter read 400 only because the meter stopped there. That's how much carbon monoxide we were getting into, and I was sitting across from that heat vent, so it was actually blowing on me, right? So they take us to the hospitals. There were 22 of us and went to 6 different hospitals. They did a whole hazmat thing. I'll put a picture here of a little tag. It's called a RIP tag. They do a mass cash, which is a mass casualty. And they have these tags that show, do you need to go right now? Next? Are you okay? Or you're just going to go home, right? And wherever the bottom of the tag is the order of priority to get you to the hospital. I was second from the bottom because I was so sick. So they put us in an ambulance, they haul us away, and I get to the hospital an hour and a half after the fact. After we left the room, an hour and a half. I know that sounds like a long time, and it is. There are some reasons why it took a long time. There was a breakdown in communications. Was this a real event or a training event? We found out later that they thought maybe it was a training event, so they didn't respond quickly. Don't even get me started. So when we get to the hospital, they draw blood. Now, on your pulse ox, as I'm sitting waiting to go, they put a pulse ox, and it said 100%. I have 100% oxygen. That cannot be trusted for carbon monoxide poisoning. Okay? They get to the hospital, they put us all in, we're all on oxygen, we're all in different rooms, and they draw our blood an hour and a half after the fact. And my blood oxygen was 81.4. At 80, they put you in a hyperbaric chamber. If it was 81.4 an hour and a half after the fact, how low was it before? Just asking. So they keep us for 8 hours or so. They draw blood 3 more times. They let us leave all at the same time. My blood oxygen had returned to like 91 or 92. 91, I think it was. And they let us leave. Now, the company I worked for, that I flew for, they had offered to stay in a hotel and not have me drive home. But I thought, no, I feel fine. I'm good. I've been outside. I feel great. No problem. So I'm going to drive home. I get in my car. I drive home. Now, I live an hour and 20 minutes away from the airport. I have no memory of that drive home. Now, my husband knew about this. He offered to come get me. I said, no, I feel fine. We were outside. We got fresh air. We got oxygen. We're good to go. And that's where the story begins. I called my doctor, my regular MD doctor, and he said, Sandy, I want to see you tomorrow in my office. I'm like, okay. Doc, I feel fine. He goes, I know, but I want to see you in my office. Okay. So I go to his office in the morning. He said, I'm going to take you off work for a couple weeks. I was like, really? I feel fine. He goes, I need you to be off work for a couple weeks. Okay. And then I had to go see their doctor and the company's doctor, which was like one of those workplace medical things. And he was a Korean War veteran doctor. And he knew so much about carbon monoxide because of being in that conflict. They had a lot of that incidents, mostly through the Nationals harming Americans. So he was really well versed on carbon monoxide poisoning. He said, you cannot fly for at least a month, and none of you should fly for a month. And your body, because of the pressurization in the plane, you should not be on a plane. Okay, I'll be off for a month, whatever, I'm good. So about 3 weeks into it, I start to get some really bad side effects. So now I'm doing research. And here's what we don't know about carbon monoxide poisoning. It attaches to the red blood cells stronger than oxygen or sugar. It's 100 times stickier than oxygen. And your body makes new red blood cells every 90 days. They're always turning over red blood cells, okay? So red blood cells I made that day are going to carry carbon monoxide for 90 days. And depending on how much carbon monoxide you received is how much damage it's going to do throughout the 90 days. So a few days after the poisoning, I had to go back down to the hotel and get my stuff. Because we just left. I had my bag, but there's other things down there that I had to have for work. And they were put someplace else. I had to go pick them up. So my husband takes me down. He says, hey, let's go by the fire station and see what they have to say. I'm like, great idea. So my husband is really friendly with firefighters. They have a lot in common, and I'm friendly with everybody. So we go over there, and it just so happens the captain that was there was at the poisoning. He said, I remember you. You were the one throwing up. I'm like, yes, sir, I was. He said, what time had you gotten there? I said, I was there at 7. The class didn't start till 9. He said, you guys were breaths away from not making it out of there. I'm sorry, what? He said, breaths away. Now, we did have 2 ladies pass out, and it seems to have affected the ladies over 50 opposed to the younger ones, okay? Which makes sense, right? They don't metabolize things like the young kids do anymore. So what he tells us is the conference room is above the hotel pool. And the hotel pool's heating system vents were blocked. They had turned it on Friday, and the class was Monday. All of the CO for the entire weekend had come through the floor, and we were now exposed to it. We were breaths away from not making it out of there. He told us a bunch of other things that I can't get into because of legal things. This is a picture of me at the hospital. If you notice, my face is all red. That's from lack of oxygen. I had so many broken blood vessels, and some of it never went away. I still have it. It's one of the things I carry with me, and I'm okay with it. It is what it is. It was way worse this day. That was me on oxygen in the hospital, waiting to know what was going to happen next. Here's the stats. Yeah, the carbon monoxide stays in your system for 90 days. You are, depending on how much carbon monoxide you have on how many red blood cells, is how much damage it's going to do. When they say it's the silent killer, they aren't kidding. We smelled nothing. We saw nothing. So I made it through. It kicked off a pretty severe case of PTSD. I went through a lot of testing. I went through a lot of, there's really no therapy for PTSD, like kind of conversational therapy. This isn't how they treat it. It's mostly just learning how to deal with the effects of it and the result of it. So I had a lot of anxiety. I had a lot of stuff happen. Honestly, I never returned to work. In this playlist, you're going to see a lot of videos that show different stages of it, of my journey, from the poisoning to the depression to the anxiety to wellness. And what I've learned through most of this is wellness is not a straight line. Wellness physically, wellness mentally, it is not a straight line. It does this, it goes backwards, it goes around in circles. There were times I couldn't go to the grocery store. I didn't leave my house for a long time. I became kind of a recluse. What saved my life was ketamine therapy. And if you don't know what ketamine therapy is, look it up. It is a drug that is used in surgery. I understand why they use it in surgery. You're going to find some videos that start after this that explain what it does and how it works and why I went through it. My neuropsychologist suggested it a year and a half after I was poisoned. I'll get into that in the subsequent videos. And I made it through. Not every day is great like this. Not every day doesn't have a panic attack. Not every day doesn't have anxiety. But a lot less days have those things. There was a time when it got pretty dark. I was considering leaving permanently. I don't have those thoughts anymore. I have gained an appreciation for mental illness that I never would have ever gotten without this horrible, horrible event in my life. When I say enjoy the videos, understand that on this side of them, I'm okay. I'm okay. You're going to see some pretty rough stuff. It is not for children. It's not for kids. It's some real, hard, emotional stuff. And I will be adding to it as time goes on, because the journey isn't complete, is it? The journey will continue. The journey to wellness will continue. I am much better at dealing with it. I am much better at recognizing it, that it's going to be a problem ahead of time. So I take measures to mitigate any anxiety that I would have. That's the story. That's where it begins. People asked what helped. Time. And then that'll be in some subsequent videos. Time, a lot of people's patience, and the ketamine therapy. So I invite you to come along on my journey to mental healthness. I don't know if that's a word, but I like it. Mental healthness. Mental wellness, I guess it is. Thank you for watching. This has been Openly Gray with Sandy Kay.